God gets to experience it all through our expression of our purpose. And so what this work has done is it has allowed me to step into my purpose in such a much deeper way and help other people really align with that purpose in a much deeper way, so they're living a life in a much fuller way.
Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Conscious investors, welcome back. I am so thrilled to invite my friend Alaina to the podcast. And before I welcome her to the show, I want to give you a little backstory because I meet all sorts of amazing people. I meet people when I'm at events. I meet people at the airport. I meet all sorts of people just walking through my little town because there are lots of travelers that come through. I'm always meeting new people, especially off of my favorite platform, LinkedIn. And that's where I met Alaina. And I was absolutely blown away. We had a conversation, and I'm going to be fully transparent here. When she and I were talking, something came up about my husband and I, and she said, "Wow, Julie, sounds like you're a little controlling." I was like, what did she just say? She didn't just say that out loud. And it was so powerful. Absolutely powerful, and has cast like this really wonderful ripple effect in self-reflection and things like that. So anyhow, I was like, we have to have her on the show because those type of conversations are really transformative. And I want to invite you into a transformative conversation along with Alaina and I. And so before I just start yammering on, as always, I'm going to pause and I'm going to just say, Alaina, I'm so happy to have you here on the Conscious Investor.
So thrilled to be here, Julie. Thanks so much for having me.
So I am not going to do justice as to your background and what you do. And so before we even dive into conversation deeper, why don't you give the listeners a little bit about what is it you do? If you go to her LinkedIn profile, which you need to do, and you need to connect up with her over there because she's got great content. So, but before they're driving in their car right now, you're going to just let them know, what do you do?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for asking that. So what I essentially do is I help entrepreneurs scale their business. So typically people who come to me have been working, 5+ years in their business. They've made it to 6 figures already. They're beyond 6 figures. And now they can't really seem to take it to the next level. And the thing that really lights me up is usually they're hustling, right? So like you and I, they're high performers and they tend to work all the time. As a matter of fact, I've just written a couple of posts recently about a client who went from working like 14-hour days regular, like I think 7 days a week, to working like 4 or 5-hour days. And then she didn't know what to do with herself. She was like, oh my God, what do I do with all of this time? And I was like, actually have a life. And she's like, I don't know how to do that. And so I'm like helping my clients actually learn what it means to have a life aside from their business, aside from the identity that they have in their business. So I help them shave 20+ hours off of their work week in addition to doubling and tripling their income in 90 days. And it's a pretty awesome experience for me because it's so life transformative on the whole level. So it helps their, it's kind of almost like holistic business coaching because it helps them, as we were just talking about, have a life. It helps them all of their relationships, because often they've done, their business and the success they had at the sacrifice of their relationship, the sacrifice of their health, at the sacrifice of their time. And now they get to have it all. And so I help my clients perform at much higher levels, working significantly less and just staying in the flow and getting out of hustle.
Gosh. Okay. So amazing listeners, you're hearing this and you're like, Julie, what? And this is exactly why I brought Alaina on. So many of you are very intentional about the life that you are creating, but you're feeling that hustle. You're feeling that pull. You're trying to break into, apartment investing, and hint, hint, make sure you're investing passively, because then it won't tax more of your time by much, right? But a lot of you are trying to, be on the active side, and you're trying to pick up this, and that, and the other thing. You're trying to do so much, and you have zero breathing space. And so, Alaina, that is, as you see, like that is where so many people are right now. They want control of their life. They want control of their time. And they're seeking that out by trying to hustle and work more. Let's support them. I'm just going to say a silver platter for the conscious investor community.
Yeah, I love that. And it is what I experience with high achievers. And there's a variety of reasons, one of which you've spoken the C word a couple of times, right? Control. So that's what we experience. So oftentimes, I'm going to get a little deep here, but oftentimes what happened is that our childhood felt out of control. And for high performers, like a lot of my clients, for example, were the golden child in their family, where their parents thought, you're the one who's going to change our lives, by being the it girl or boy, right? Mm-hmm. And no pressure. And so they grow up with tons of pressure, right? Tons of pressure to perform, whether it be in sports, whether it be academically. There's tons of pressure typically on what my clients feel. And so they become very controlling of their environment to keep themselves safe, because they realize from a young age, as a survival mechanism, if I can control my environment, then I can actually get what I want and stay safe in the process. Except that may have served you when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It doesn't serve you anymore as an adult. And that's the key, because when you're controlling, you're actually pinching off flow. And so to be in flow, to allow so much more, like the universe wants to give you so much more than you want to give yourself. And to actually allow that in requires that we get out of the way of control. Like, think about what happens when you control a river, for example, Julie. Like, it's a dam, right? So it pinches off flow. It doesn't allow the flow. And so we want to open up the dam and let the waters flow so that the universe can give you so much more in significantly less time, like an experience, a more, I'm going to say, rounded experience.
I love that. And I have a dam very nearby that I drive by as I take my daughter to her friend's house. And if you've ever driven by a dam, sometimes, the water is dammed. There's a little reservoir behind it. And sometimes you'll have just this little trickle. Sometimes you'll have a zero flow coming from it. Sometimes it's a trickle. So that's a very relevant. I can visualize that in my mind, because we don't want that. We want it to be the Snake River flowing freely. We want it to be the Columbia River flowing freely.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And when we get out of our own ways, because typically the entrepreneurs I work with, are the CEOs and founders, they're typically the bottleneck of their own business, and they don't realize it. Even when they have a significant or sizable team, they're still the bottleneck of their own business. And when they get out of their own way, it's amazing how magic can happen and manifestation follows.
So what kind of things, how are they bottlenecking the process?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay. So the first thing that comes to mind is leadership, right? So, okay, it all boils down to whether it be through leadership, whether it be through the hustle mentality, whether it be through a variety of other things, not working with their energy. Ultimately, it's blocks and limiting beliefs, subconscious blocks and limiting beliefs that are causing what's going on. So I don't know about you, Julie, but I grew up hearing, for example, you have to work hard to succeed. So a lot of the messages that got in for me are, like I said, work hard to succeed. Nothing of value comes easy. Money is hard to make, etc. And
you're lazy. If you just have something, then you're being lazy. Like, you're not going to get anything in life if you are complacent.
Exactly. Which is why when my clients start going from, 12, 14-hour days to like 4 to 6 hour days, they're like freaking out, because it bumps up against the programming that they've had from the time that they were kids. And so we have to undo all of that programming so that they can actually just show up and be themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other really big thing that I see is high performers in particular, especially as entrepreneurs, tend to get their validation from their work, from their accomplishments, from their achievements. And so because they're always chasing the next accomplishment and the next achievement, and if they were to quote unquote stop or feel like they wouldn't have that level of success, then they feel it directly impacts their own worthiness and value.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to disconnect those two things because they actually have nothing to do with each other. And that attachment to those external validations actually stop you from actually achieving more.
I love that. And I'm sure everyone listening, you can see this in some capacity in your own life. If we're willing to be honest with ourselves and to go back to some of that programming and the thinking, especially when it comes to, I have to be the person doing all the heavy lifting in order for X, Y, and Z to happen. Yes. I'm going to dumb this down. I'm going to give everyone a really easy way to see this case in point. Okay. And we just started watching White Collar, a TV show, an old TV show last night. And we resurrected it to watch it, as a family, because it's a fun show. Our kids are ready. And this ex-con and art thief, he ends up being told that he's going to be in a particular setting. And it was a dive, like not the apartment you want to live in. And he was able to find this and create arrangement where he's living in this beautiful setting, changes the setting. And the person, the FBI agent in charge of him basically is like, how are you even able to do this? Like, you're supposed to work hard. I work hard all the time. I don't have a view of Manhattan like this. To your point, like I'm putting in all of this hard work and I don't have anything. And you go to a thrift shop and you walk out and now you're living in this great place. And I get that that's like what we call around our house, like movie physics or TV physics, right? But that is really that mentality that we are raised with. So how do we break this mentality? How do we reprogram our brain?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. And that's actually my genius, right? That's what I'm masterful at. Because when clients come to me, typically, and I'm sure you get this, in your experience too, but typically the businesses that come to me have been chasing strategies. They think they may be one funnel away. They think they may be one secret away from creating what they want to create in their businesses, which is typically, the clients that come to me are very mission driven. So they have really high, like really big visions. And when they're not obviously accomplishing it. And so what we do is I help them. I do it. I've been trained as a DNA healer. So I literally can tune into your DNA, your subconscious mind, and your superconscious mind and understand what's going on in there and bring truth into your subconscious mind that will actually heal the limiting beliefs. And then I teach my clients how to do it for themselves because I'm really big on the idea of not just giving them a fish so they can eat for a day, but teaching them how to fish so they can eat for the rest of their life. So this is a game changer for life. This is a different lifestyle of actually really recognizing who you really are instead of the paradigm, the identity construct that you grew up creating for yourself, believing in. And it fits you into this very tight little box. And when you break the box open, all of a sudden, so much more is possible for you.
I just absolutely love your heart of, I'm going to teach you how to do that, to do this. And really what that does is it invites everyone around them into that process as well, because we can't walk across the earth without, leaving a little bit of our glitter around us. And it's particularly if we have, the significant relationships in our lives, if we're raising children, that's just going to naturally flow into the lives around us. So I love that. I just want to, if you haven't really been commended and thanks, what a contribution to the world to be able to teach people to do this. Now, yes, you said something that caught my mind also. And I have not, and I love the subconscious mind. I've done a lot of podcast episodes on the subconscious mind because it's so incredibly powerful. But you mentioned the superconscious, and I know nothing of this. I feel embarrassed a little bit, but I'm not going to let that stop me from asking, right? Move beyond whatever feeling it is. What is a superconscious?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. I love this. Okay. So for people like, who listen to you regularly, they may have an understanding of the subconscious and the idea that the subconscious is a million times powerful than the conscious mind, and all the programming that you have, like all the stories, essentially all the meanings that we've made out of life, which aren't actually truth, but they're the magical thinking of children, essentially, are living in our subconscious minds and actually being reflected into our reality and creating our reality, right? Now, the superconscious mind is essentially that infinite part of us, right? It's the part that's connected to infinite intelligence. So universal intelligence, you can call it your soul, you can call it the universe, you can call it your higher self, you can call it your inner genius, which I often call it's the seat of your intuition. Right. So I'm sure that you and all of your guests have either had a 3 a.m. genius moment, or they've had some download in the process of like a walk or a shower or something like that. Right. That is coming. Those synchronicities that happen in your life, that's coming from your superconscious mind. And so when you learn to tap into your superconscious mind on demand, not just when you happen to be open and receptive to getting a download, but actually learn how to do it on demand and then follow that guidance, that moves you into flow. Then you're able to stay in flow because you're following a higher level of guidance. It's like your intuition on steroids, all the time. And you can tap into that energy all the time. And that for me is what the lifestyle is. So instead of my ego, which comes from the subconscious mind, running my life and creating a life that I don't want, so I keep hitting the same barriers, the same wall, the same results over and over again, I get to tap into my superconscious mind, clear that shiz out of the way, and then follow the guidance. Because essentially, from a quantum physics approach, it's like the past, present, and future exist in the now. Now, I know it's like time bending, right? Humans have created a construct called linear time, but linear time doesn't actually exist in the universe. It exists for us because we're powerful beings collectively, and we've created it to exist for us, but it actually doesn't really exist. And so your superconscious mind already knows what happened in the future. It already knows if you make that choice versus that choice, the consequence of each of those choices. So when you're looking to get from point A to point B, it knows how to do it with the most ease and grace. And so I'll give you like a super simple example. Yeah. So you have like a mile you're going to drive, or let's say 2 miles that you're going to drive to your office every day. And you know the route that you take every day to get there. And on this particular day, you're going there and your superconscious mind might say to you, make a left here. And you're like, your ego will go, no. I know the way to go. This is where control comes in, right? Right. I know the way to go. I'm going this way. This is the way that I'm going to go. And your superconscious mind goes, make a left. And you're like, nope, I'm going to ignore it. And then like 3/4 of a mile up, you get stuck in a car accident for like an hour and a half. And what your superconscious mind was trying to do was route you around the car accident so you wouldn't be stuck in traffic. But because we don't pay attention, like I cannot tell you how many of my clients have said they've heard that still small voice so frequently and they don't listen to it. Right. And so it's training yourself to not only listen to it, but to follow it so that you can have a different experience.
That is very, very powerful. So powerful. Here's another example that I think a lot of people relate to also. How many times do we have that where we want to make that phone call? We have that, oh, I need to call that person. I need to text that person. I need to reach out or whatever it is. And we don't. And next thing you know, you get this message from that person in X, Y, or Z. It doesn't have to be good or bad. It's just they reach out to you for something. That would be my own personal, but okay. So I've been learning how to listen to that intuition. How do you coach people in growing that confidence? Because it really, I look at it and I'd love to hear your perspective on this because I value your insights, but I always look at that as a relationship and I've had to cultivate a higher level of trust and okay, well, I'm going to trust my intuition and okay, it worked out. And generally it does work out and it gets easier, but how How do you guide people in this?
Yeah, that's another great question because, what essentially most people, I have yet to meet anybody who have said that they haven't followed their intuition and it hasn't worked out amazingly. And yet, like you said, I mean, when people don't follow the intuition, they always say, oh my God, this happened as a result of it. And it's not good.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So the ego mind wants evidence. It wants evidence of where it's true. Where has this happened? Where have I trusted before and it's worked out? But actually, your superconscious mind, your intuition doesn't need any evidence, right? It's all knowing. It doesn't need evidence. And so once you really clear the beliefs and you just it's so funny. I had a client yesterday who's such a massive high achiever. And when she started learning how to clear her limiting beliefs, she said to me, I don't think I've really cleared them that well because I was using my rational mind to clear them. And I was like, right, you cannot clear limiting beliefs with your rational mind. Your ego is telling you, stay in control. That's what's going to happen. You cannot clear your limiting beliefs that way. And so we had her, like when I was working with her, actually understand what she needed to do. And she's like, but how do I trust that? And I go, you really just need to lean in. It's like, trust isn't something in many ways that you grow. You either do or you don't. And what I find is when my clients actually lean in and I go, like, for example, let's say you get 10 things that you're told to do, and maybe 2 of them came from ego, but the other 8 came from your superconscious mind. The fact that you followed those other 8 will cultivate that relationship for you so that you're getting more and more messages that are coming through. You're able to receive more messages, and that way you feel more trusting of that relationship. So it's kind of a multi-level process of first clearing the beliefs that are keeping you not trusting it in the first place, the beliefs that want you to stay on track of where you are now and keep you safe. And then also just really leaning in. Like I remember sometime early last year, my I'm going to call it my higher self, my superconscious mind said to me, because I last year, for several years before, was offering both strategy, systems, and mindset. And what I was noticing is that if people didn't have their mindset right, no matter what strategy they were using, it didn't quite work effectively.
Amen.
And at one point, my higher self said to me, so you can't offer any other work anymore. This is the work that you're going to offer. And I was like, I make really good money. How am I going to make money doing this? Like, I don't understand this. It was like a Friday night. And I was like so terrified of this. I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to completely pivot my business. And I was working with a coach at the time who said, yeah, do that over 6 months. And my higher self said, no, today. Like today, this is it today. And then you're either in or you're out. Just declare it. You're either in or you're out. There's no waffling. There's no, let me think about it. You're either in or you're out. And I went, okay, I'm in. I don't know what that looks like. I'm terrified, but I'm in. And then the next day I got clarity on what that looked like. And then within 48 hours, I had my first client. And up until that point, that was my highest income producing month. Up until that point, I literally tripled my income from the month before.
Wow.
So it's like that was such a big thing for me because I get those little ones of having to lean in and trust, but that was like a really big one where people around me were going, like, don't do it, don't pivot, it's going to take a while, etc. And I was just like, no, follow the guidance. And I did, and I haven't regretted it. Like my life is so much better because of it, Julie, that when I get those like even bigger things, I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like, was it the beginning of July, the end of June? I was told I had to shake up my comfort zone and go live somewhere else for a month. And so I had to tune in and find out where I was going to live. And it turned out to be Asheville, North Carolina. But me also having an issue with control being a life lesson for me, I went there and then started living a super awesome life. And it wasn't like I was uncomfortable at all. And I was defeating the purpose of the whole trip. So then the way that what happened after that was really, really uncomfortable so that I can learn that I'm safe no matter what and unattached from a level of comfort in my life so I can actually allow more in.
So what did you do? Wait, what did you do to get really uncomfortable?
Well, I had to leave Asheville, right?
Mhm.
And I had to travel back in it wasn't a linear way. It was like all over the place on the way back. And I had to not know where I was going until like I would stay at a hotel. I would work during the day in their business center. And then I would tune in to find out where I was meant to go next. And then I would get a general location of where I was meant to go. And I was told when to stop and tune in again. It was all trust. It was about trust and relinquishing control. And so then I would find out where I would get to stay for the night. But every day the hotel got like seedier and seedier. Like it was really interesting. I was like, I do not want to be here. It was safe. It was clean, but it wasn't the standard that I'm accustomed to living in. And this is the point. Like get uncomfortable, like unattached from the comfort of your surroundings. Until the last day, I was like, I wonder if people are paying by the hour instead of the night.
It gives us all an idea of the time of how things went down.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was like, I really want to leave. I want to go home. Could I stay in a different place? And I was like, of course you can. You could do whatever you want. You will defeat the purpose of the lesson, but you could do whatever you want. So I stayed. And I got the lesson, which was the relinquishment of control and trusting. And when I came back, things just blossomed after that because I got it, but it was really uncomfortable.
Wow. Okay. Now I love people so much. So I have to ask this question, which is a little slightly off topic. Okay. But I'll die if I don't ask this question. What did you learn about people as you went through this process? How did you, because actually that is really part of it. Like the main lesson was relinquish control and everything, but then there are all the sub lessons. And I'm wondering if that changed how it.
No, it's really interesting. I have done so much clearing. Like I also offer a program called, in addition to my 6 into 7 program, I offer a program called Death of Ego. And it literally deconstructs your identity construct, right? That's what it does. And I personally have done that program twice. So I was very social there, but I wasn't allowed to really and when I say I wasn't allowed, I always have a choice. You always have a choice. Like your superconscious mind will never take away your free will. It will direct you and guide you what to do. And it is always your choice whether to follow it or not. And so what I was directed, the guidance I got was really not to interact with a lot of other people other than very superficially. So for example, if I went to an art gallery, I might spend 10 minutes talking to the art dealer or something like that. But there was actually one art dealer and her husband that I really wanted to have dinner with. We so connected, and I was told nope. So I was like, no, I honor that. Like I just follow the guidance. I trust it. It may not be consciously what I want to do, but I follow the guidance, and it's never wrong. I don't understand it oftentimes, and I'm not meant to, and that's okay. But it's always moving me to where I want to go. So for me, I can't say that I had a lot of people lessons, because I wasn't interacting as much with people. But, I have to say this, Julie, it's going to sound terrible. Most people live in their ego. Most people are driven by their ego. So for me, I'm accustomed to staying at a very elevated level. So to be around a lot of people, I have to clear their ego pretty consistently for me to hang out with other people other than, my circle. So it becomes a very different experience being incredibly social or going to live events and stuff like that because of it.
Gosh, I appreciate the vulnerability with that. And it's amazing. It's like such a high level of faith. That's what I hear. In my worldview, I have a strong faith in Christ. And so it's like that would be what my super connector is like through my faith. But all of this speaks to that, to be connected at any level, you have to have this high level of faith that is so much greater than ourselves. And it's absolutely amazing.
So much greater. And it's funny, I am kind of a religious, but incredibly spiritual. And I have talked to some religious people who said, you're more religious than most of the people I know, because
or have more faith, maybe.
I have more faith.
Yeah,
because I have more faith because I really follow the guidance. Like, it is so important for me because it has turned my life around. Like when I came to the work that I do now, I was struggling to get past six figures in my own business. And I had, a deep dive, like my income crashed. I had gone on public assistance. I mean, I was like literally dipping into my son's savings account to pay for food and gas. And the amount of shame and guilt that I had around that was so huge. And even though my income came back to six figures, I still couldn't get myself past it because I was still living in the shame and guilt. So when I found something that liberated that, I was like, I am freaking all in. I am all in. And it has served me so powerfully. So I have to say, I feel like I am a servant of that because I'm a servant of purpose, because the other thing about that is that we've all come here encoded with a purpose that is unique to us. Even if people do two different things, it is unique in terms of how it's expressed to you. And I'll use, God in this sense instead of the universe, but it's like, God gets to experience it all through the experience of us, through us, right? Through our expression of our purpose. And so what this work has done is it has allowed me to step into my purpose in such a much deeper way and help other people, even though they may be years into their business, really align with that purpose in a much deeper way. So they're living a life in a much fuller way.
Gosh, this is why I wanted to have you on the show, because unlocking, and I believe when you and I were talking, a month or so ago, and just had a casual conversation just to get to know each other, that's just it. And they're so aligned on that core purpose that we are, it's like hardwired into us. There's no changing it. For better or for worse. And you can try to suffocate it and push something down and it's going to ooze out in some capacity because it needs to come out. And I'm so grateful for people like you who help people. You found your purpose and you help other people unlock their purpose. And you know what? Making that jump as an entrepreneur from 6 to 7 figures, making that jump from working 14-hour days to going to 4-hour days. Those type of transitions unlock a true living opportunity. And that's a huge gift in service to the world.
It unlocks the nature of who we are, which most of us suppress, repress, don't even know, aren't connected to. And when you connect to that purpose in a much deeper way, it really opens up the truth of who you are, because that is, when we talked about like subconscious programming before, when my clients recognize that they've had this, like I had one client, he's a lawyer and he is in his late 50s and he's no longer working with me. So I said, pass. But when he got a sense of the truth of who he was for the first time, he literally started crying and said, my whole life has been built on a lie. I cannot believe my whole life has been built on a lie. And it's like, yeah, aren't you glad that you get to know now instead of going to your deathbed with it? Because for so many people, when they see the truth, it's like, holy crap, I've been living a complete and total lie my whole life. And it's like, yeah, now you get to live something completely different, so much more empowered, so much more free and liberated to live so much a fuller existence and expand into ever more life. And that's, to me, what life is really about.
I love that. And there can be that remorse or that regret or that grief associated with that transformation. But then that acceptance, I've had my own experiences of that nature. This sounds very silly, maybe, but when I discovered apartment syndication, I felt like I had been betrayed because I'd been raised in real estate. And I'm thinking, I sat at the table beside commercial real estate brokers. And how did they never tell me this? I grew up literally going to the office from the moment why did this have to wait until I was in my 40s? And instead of absorbing that in a negative capacity, I accepted it and said, but I needed to go through these other experiences to get here. And everything has prepared me for this moment and for what I do. That, that's my, and perhaps speaking to the control part, perhaps that's just me trying to, the ego coming out, trying to rationalize and compartmentalize and make it, comfortable. But really, truly at a deeper level, I really do believe that. I see how my past prepared me for where I was, but that life. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Hey, just warning. I might get splayed open here. No, speak to that for sure.
In a general sense, because here's the thing.
I'm transparent. You're good.
Yeah, there are two ways to really learn. There's through adversity, right? Through the actual hard experience. And hard experiences really can create and catapult fast growth. There's no doubt about it, but it's not actually necessary. And most people believe, because it's so perpetuated in our society that, like the breakdown to breakthrough, for example, right? That's just
right.
Really doesn't
burn out to break through. And
right. You don't have to do that. You don't. You can actually learn from awareness alone. You can learn from proactive awareness. And that's what I teach my clients. And when you are able to learn the lesson in advance, then it becomes an easy way to learn the lesson rather than having it to learn the hard way. Your ego will take you into learning the lesson the hard way. And you still have to learn those lessons to grow. It's not like growth ever is going to stop. Like when growth stops, you're no longer on the planet. You're dead. You've moved on. But as long as we're living, we're growing or we're stagnating. And that's why we're having like crappy lives. And so to be able to grow and kind of proactively is far less painful and filled with suffering. There's no suffering at all. It's just, it may be uncomfortable, but that's just sensation. You get to learn about how to live with the sensation of discomfort, right? Because in truth, over here is the ego mind, right? And your ego mind, which is, from your subconscious mind, only knows the past. It doesn't know the present. It doesn't know the future. It only knows the past. And it just wants to keep looping the past over and over and over again because it's safe. So it will try to keep you and bring you back. Every time you try to come out of that, it will suck you back in. Those are self-sabotaging patterns, right? Because everybody's got one. And what it looks like to everybody is unique in terms of your self-sabotage pattern. So your ego will try to keep you in your self-sabotage pattern. But you can actually come out over here because we'll call it, again, your true self, right? Your higher self is all knowing. It already knows what's going to happen this whole way. It doesn't have any fear. There is no uncertainty to it. It already knows. So it knows, as I said, how to get you from point A to point B with the most ease and grace. It already knows if I get off this path and I go this way, what's the consequence of that? How do I bring you back on the path? Now, for this path over here, for your ego, is uncertainty, which feels like death. And so it wants to keep pulling you back. But for your higher self, it knows it, and it can move you there effortlessly, right? So the ego will have you learn the hard way, and your higher self will have you learn the easy way. Both are methods of learning, and it is a choice.
Wow. And as you describe that, honestly, anytime I am willing to go forward with that uncertainty, it works out.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yes, because everything we want is outside of our comfort zone.
Everything.
Right? If everything was in our comfort zone, we'd already have it. So everything we want is in our comfort zone because it requires growth. Like the universe itself is ever expanding. And so we are too, because we're part of the universe. We're ever expanding. We cannot create, if you're at multiple six figures, you can't create a 7-figure business from where you are right now. You have to expand to hold that much more.
I love that. Okay. We're going to have to wrap up in just a little bit. Before we wrap up, I want to ask this question because I'm so fascinated right now. Okay. We have all these amazing listeners and they're hearing this, they're like, oh my gosh, what would be one strategy that they could, kind of experience right now as they're listening to this on the treadmill or in the car, where they could maybe identify that self-sabotage, that one area? There might be more, there are going to be all sorts of things going on, but where they could maybe have that. Is there a way we could do that?
Well, I was going to teach people how to tap into self-belief and feel self-belief.
Oh, love it.
If you want
No.
to do that, then I can think about what would create for self-sabotage, because really what happens is bringing awareness to like what happens right before you have something edgy, right? Like maybe it's a launch, maybe it's an investment, maybe something that feels like super edgy, and notice what happens right before that. Because for a lot of my clients, for example, they'll have a fight with their significant other. Right. And they won't even realize that it's a pattern that they've created where every time they're about to make a breakthrough, they have a fight with their significant other, or they'll have some form of pain in their body or get sick in some way, or they'll have an issue with a friend or their kids, maybe like something will come up that will like be almost a consistent theme. Like, and they usually do not realize that it's happening, is that every time they're about to take a leap, and if they could feel that energy building of them taking a leap, something will happen and it will take them out. They'll go into procrastination. They won't take the action. They'll make an excuse about why they're not going to take an action. As I said, they'll have a fight. They'll have some health issue. There'll be something that happens right before that. And if they start to create an awareness around it, they'll realize that it's a consistent theme that happens every time they're about to break through. Right? We create these set points, right? And so let's say the set point is the middle line here. They'll start to go up, and they're almost at this line, and then they'll dive right back down, and they'll go below the set point often, usually, right? And that's what'll happen, and it'll look like this, like the whole time.
So you're going to be going up and down. So those of you listening, go back over and rewatch this over on YouTube, because then you can see kind of some of it, because you and I are talk with the hands kind of people. And I appreciate that. So make sure you go back and watch that. So then somebody identifies, they're like, okay, oh my gosh, I get a pain on my right side. I have this argument beforehand. They identify that. Then how do they change that?
Work with a mindset coach to help them.
Boom. That's right. Yeah.
Right? No, seriously, because I can't tell you how many modalities I used to work with my clients. And what I was finding is that that they were having massive success as long as they were working with me, but they weren't getting continued success once they'd stop working with me. And that really bothered me. I didn't want them dependent on me for them not to slide backwards into their self-sabotage patterns.
Right.
And that's how I came across this modality. And then ever since I have, it's been like, boom, you don't slide backwards the same way, and you just keep going and going and going. And it's been pretty amazing. So, like even if they're not right for me, if they want to connect with me, I can, give them the other resources that teach this modality to help them understand how to stop those self-sabotage patterns so that they can actually move forward without going 2 steps forward to 1 step back.
Gosh, I can't think of anyone listening right now, myself included, who wouldn't want to just have that forward momentum. Going backwards is no fun. Sometimes it happens, but man, to be able to just continue the flow, that's powerful. Okay, so what is the best way for people to connect up with you?
So you said it at the beginning, LinkedIn is the best way for people to connect with me. I'm a super active person on LinkedIn. Mention when you connect with me on LinkedIn, mention that you heard me on this podcast, because my team, handles my LinkedIn and they may not connect with you otherwise. So I want to make sure that everybody gets connected with, and then I can have a personal conversation with you about how to support you or give you other tools from outside of me, in other places to support you.
I absolutely love that. I appreciate your time so much, Alaina, and your insights and, your willingness to share with some of your personal story, and just already adding so much value by just, opening our minds and our understanding of the subconscious mind and the superconscious mind. And really, we can have a perpetual state of flow, and what a delightful life that would be, and a true life living, full and joy. It is just exceptional. So thank you so much.
It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you, Julie.
Gosh. Amazing conscious investors. Make sure you go and connect up with Alaina. We will definitely have a link to her LinkedIn profile in the show notes, so that we'll make it nice and easy for you. And as always, Remember, adventure belongs on the trail, not in your investing. That means not in your personal life, not in your financial investments. And so if you need any guidance along the way with your personal or your financial life, make sure you reach out, schedule a time to talk, and let's support you. Until next time, live big, love bigger. A lot of people missed out on my recent offering because they simply weren't on my investor list. Being on my newsletter list won't provide you with access to the deals I have. This is because 506B regulations require you and I actually discuss your investment goals before I can show you the deals I have. So head over to 3Keys Investments and schedule a call.